Some truths don't shout. They settle in the corners of a room like dust you only notice when the light shifts. My name is Elias. And this is the story of how the person I shared 18 square feet of cinderblock hell with quietly rewrote every rule I thought I knew about wanting. In the terrifying moment when the two finally line blurs, it began predictably. With a screw dash up, the housing office sent an email 2 days before move-in, due to over-enrollment. Your single-room request has been converted to a forced double in Hawthorne Hall, room 519. I read it 3 times on the Amtrak, each pass making the words uglier. I had paid the single-room fee for a reason. I was 20, newly out to exactly 4 people, and not interested in spending 9 months editing myself for some lacrosse bro who'd flinch every time I changed shirts, but the train kept moving. And so did I. I got off at campus with 1 duffel, 1 suitcase, in the grim determination of someone who'd already survived worse. Room 519 was on the top floor, the kind of walk-up that smells like old pizza and radiator heat. I pushed the door open and found a shoebox. 2 twin beds separated by 4 feet of scratched linoleum. 2 desks, 2 dressers, 1 window that overlooked the dining hall roof. I took the bed by the window because at least I could pretend I had a view. I was hanging my 1 framed print, a charcoal drawing of 2 boys kissing. Subtle enough to need a second look when the door banged open hard enough to bounce off the wall. Shit. Sorry, the voice was low, easy, the kind that belonged on a porch swing. I turned and almost dropped the hammer. She filled the doorway like she'd been built for it, tall. Maybe 5'11" shoulders that suggested she could row crew or deadlift small cars. Skin the color of toasted cedar from a summer spent outdoors. Her hair was black and thick, twisted into a messy knot, with a pencil stabbed through it. And her eyes were the pale gray-green of sea glass. She wore paint-splattered overalls over a white tank top and carried a canvas army duffel in one hand and an enormous framed photograph in the other. "You must be Elias," she said, grinning like we were already friends. "I'm Rowan Whitlock. Looks like we're married for the year." She stuck out a hand smudged with cerulean. I shook it, felt calluses, felt warmth travel straight up my arm like a struck match. "Cool if I take the bed by the door?" she asked, already dropping her bag. "I thrash when I dream. Less chance of kicking you in the face." I managed something that might have passed for agreement. Over the next hour, we performed the ancient freshman ritual of claiming territory. She hung her giant photograph, a close-up of rusted shipwreck ribs half buried in sand. It was beautiful and a little heartbreaking. I strung fairy lights. She commandeered half the closet without asking, and somehow made it feel fair. She played Fleetwood Mac and Phoebe Bridgers. I introduced her to Japanese Breakfast and Big Thief. We discovered we were both night owls, both slightly allergic to mornings, both prone to living inside headphones. She was a photography major with a concentration in environmental portraiture. Her plan was to document disappearing coastlines after graduation. She'd grown up in a tiny town on the Outer Banks where her dad ran fishing charters and her mom taught 3rd grade. She had 3 older brothers who'd taught her to surf, fight, and swear in 3 languages. I told her I was illustration, that I wanted to do children book covers someday, maybe graphic novels, that I'd grown up in Richmond with parents who loved me, but still flinched when I said the word boyfriend, that I'd come out junior year of high school and lost half my friends in 1 calendar month. Rowan listened without the sympathetic head tilt I'd come to expect. She just nodded, like she was filing information the way other people file receipts. "That sucks," she said finally. "People are cowards." Then she asked if I wanted to split a 6-pack she'd smuggled in. And that was that. The first month was easy in the way new things are easy, full of discovery and low stakes. We learned each other's silences. She left the bathroom door open when she showered because the lock was broken, and she trusted me not to be creep. I learned she drank coffee, black and scalding, and that she talked to her plants like they were puppies. She learned I alphabetized my pens by color and that I cried at the end of Wale every single time. She had a girlfriend back home, Leela, who was finishing up community college and planning to transfer next year. They FaceTimed most nights. Rowan perched on her bed with headphones in, laughing in a softer voice than she ever used with me. I pretended it didn't carve anything out of my chest, too. One Thursday in October, we got drunk on cheap red wine and decided to rearrange the furniture at 2 a.m. We pushed the beds together to make one giant platform, shoved the desks against opposite walls, and hung a curtain made of fairy lights and thrift store scarves down the middle for the illusion of privacy. It felt like building a fort. It felt like a declaration I didn't have words for yet. After that, the room felt different. Smaller, warmer, dangerous. November brought rain and midterms and the slow realization that I measured my days by when Rowan came back smelling like darkroom chemicals and cold air. I started staying up later just to hear her key in the lock. She started texting me from the library, "Save me from Kant. Bring snacks." One night she came in soaked from running across campus in a downpour, hair dripping, cheeks flushed. She peeled off her wet hoodie and stood there in a thin white t-shirt that clung to every line of her. I looked too long. She noticed. Neither of us said anything. The shift was glacial and inevitable. It lived in the way she started knocking before entering the bathroom, even though the lock still didn't work. In how I caught her watching me when I sketched at my desk. Chin propped on her hand like I was the most interesting thing in the room. In the night, she had a nightmare, and I woke to find her halfway onto my side of the bed, forehead pressed to my shoulder, breathing hard. I didn't move away. I put my hand on her back until she settled. December arrived with snow and the kind of quiet makes secrets loud. We were studying for finals. Both of us on the big bed surrounded by textbooks and empty coffee cups. The radiator clanked. Fairy lights glowed. Rowan was flat on her stomach, highlighting something, barefoot, wearing my hoodie because hers was in the wash. She looked up suddenly. "Can I ask you something personal?" I braced. "Shoot, have you ever been in love?" The question hung between us like incense. I thought about the boy who'd kissed me behind the auditorium sophomore year and then pretended it never happened. About every almost I'd collected since. "No," I said. "Not the real kind." She nodded slowly, eyes on the highlighter in her hand. "Me neither." Silence stretched thick and sweet. Then, Lila and I broke up. My heart punched against my ribs. "I'm sorry. Don't be." She rolled onto her side, facing me. It had been dying for months. I just didn't want to admit why. The radiator clanked again. Somewhere down the hall, someone played lo-fi Christmas music. Rowan reached out, brushed a strand of hair off my forehead with fingers that trembled just slightly. "I'm not straight." "Eli," she said quietly. "I think I've known for a while. I just didn't have the words until you—" I couldn't breathe. "I don't want to mess this up," she whispered. "Our friendship. The room US. But I'm so tired of pretending. I don't want to touch you every second I'm in here." The space between us was 3 inches and 1,000 miles. I closed it. The first kiss was careful, almost polite. The second wasn't. Her mouth tasted like spearmint gum and honesty. She made a small sound against my lips that I felt in my spine. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wide, pupils blown. "Okay?" I asked, voice wrecked. She laughed, shaky and delighted. "Very okay." We didn't have sex that night. We stayed up until dawn, talking, trading soft, astonished kisses, foreheads pressed together, learning the new shape of everything. She told me she'd been jealous of every guy I'd ever mentioned. I told her I'd memorized the way she said my name when she was half asleep. We laughed at how stupidly obvious it had all been. Spring semester, we were inseparable. We told exactly no one at first, afraid to jinx it. We learned each other in the dark. The scar on her rib from a surfing accident. The way my breath hitched when she kissed the hollow beneath my ear. We fought about stupid things whose turn it was to buy coffee filters and made up with our mouths and hands and whispered apologies. Against skin dot, eventually we told our friends. Some were unsurprised. Some needed a minute. Everyone came around. Rowan's parents invited me home for spring break. Her mom hugged me so hard I saw stars and said, We always wanted another son. Her dad took me fishing and only made 3 awkward jokes about lady troubles before giving up and teaching me how to bait a hook. I brought Rowan to Richmond for Easter. My little sister immediately adopted her, demanded Rowan photograph her wedding someday, and stole half her fries. My parents watched us across the dinner table with something like wonder, like they were seeing a version of me they'd hoped for but hadn't dared expect. We moved off campus. Junior year, into a tiny apartment with creaky floors and a clawfoot tub. Rowan's shipwreck photo hung above our bed. My charcoal boys still kissed on the living room wall. But now there was a new print beside it. Me, asleep on our couch, mouth slightly open. Rowan's shadow falling across my face like a promise. Some nights we still push the mattress onto the floor and string up the old fairy lights. Some truths still arrive quietly, but some, when you're ready, step into the light and refuse to leave. And that's the best kind of truth there is. The dorm was old brick and creaking pipes. 3rd floor of Hawthorne Hall. Room 312. When I moved in freshman year, I expected a stranger I could politely ignore for 9 months. Instead, I got Elias Ward. Eli was 6'2", broad-shouldered, and unfairly easy in his own skin. He played goalkeeper for the university's soccer team, which meant he came home smelling like cut grass and winter air, hair still damp from the showers, laughing at something one of his teammates had shouted across the locker room. He greeted me with a lopsided grin and an outstretched hand the day we met. "Hope you don't mind snoring," he said. "Coach says I sound like a broken chainsaw." I shook his hand and tried not to notice how warm it was. "I sleep with earplugs," I lied. "I didn't, I just figured I'd learn to live with it. I'm Julian Valdez. Art major. Quiet, openly gay. Since I was 16 and my mom cried. Happy tears in the kitchen of our little apartment in Tucson. Eli knew that within the first week. I'd mentioned going to the Pride planning meeting, and he'd just nodded like it was the most normal thing in the world. That was Eli. Nothing seemed to rattle him, except, I learned later, himself. We settled into a rhythm fast. He had morning practice, I had 8 a.m. figure drawing. He left protein shake carnage in the blender. I left charcoal fingerprints on the doorknob. He hung a team photo above his desk. I taped up a print of Basquiat. Our beds were 3 feet apart because the room was the size of a generous closet. At night, the space between us felt both too small and impossibly wide. He had a girlfriend sophomore year. Her name was Claire. Pre-med ponytail, laughed like bells. She came over on Sundays with homemade banana bread and sat on Eli's lap while they studied origami flashcards. I'd sit at my desk pretending to care about color theory while every casual touch between them felt like sandpaper. On my nerves, Eli was tactile with everyone. A clap on a teammate's back. A one-armed hug for Claire. A playful shove. With me it was the same at first. A hand on my shoulder when he leaned over to see what I was drawing. Knees knocking under the desk when we both reached for the same charger. He'd flop onto my bed to scroll TikTok while I worked, shoulder against my thigh. Perfectly comfortable. I told myself that was all it was. Comfortable. Straight boy. Comfortable, my body. Traitor that it was, had other ideas. I started staying late in the painting studio. Coming back after midnight, smelling like turpentine and desperation. Anything to put hours between me and the sound of his breathing across the room, he noticed. "Of course, you're never here anymore," he said one night in early November. Sitting on the edge of his bed in sweatpants and that old gray hoodie he wore when he was cold. The lamplight carved shadows under his cheekbones. "Did I piss you off or something?" "No," I said too quickly. "Senior thesis. Deadlines." He studied me for a long second, then nodded like he was letting me keep the lie. "Okay, double quotes. Claire broke up with him 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I came back from the library to find him sitting on the floor between our beds, back against his mattress, staring at nothing. She said I was somewhere else," he told the carpet, "even when I was right in front of her." I sat down opposite him, close enough that our knees almost touched. "I'm sorry." He shrugged, but his shoulders were tight. I think she was right. Thanksgiving break came and went. Claire stayed gone. December crept in with ice on the windows and finals looming. Eli started lingering. He'd wait for me after practice so we could walk back together. He'd save me the good dining hall cookies. He started sketching little doodles on the corner of my notes when he thought I wasn't looking. Tiny goalposts. My favorite coffee cup. Once a surprisingly good portrait of me, asleep on my textbook. I told myself I was reading into. It then came the night of the soccer teams. Holiday party at some off-campus house. With too many Christmas lights and not enough square footage. Eli begged me to come. You never do anything fun, Jules. One night, for me, so I went. Wore black jeans and the one nice shirt I owned. Eli wore a ridiculous ugly sweater with a light-up reindeer nose. He looked stupid and perfect. I lost him for an hour in the crush of bodies. Found him again in the kitchen, leaning against the counter. Cheeks flushed from heat and whatever was in his solo cup. Hey, he said, soft, like we were the only two people in the room. Missed you. My heart did something inconvenient. It's been 45 minutes, still. He bumped my shoulder with his. Dance with me. There's no room to dance. There's room if we stand really close. I laughed because it was easier than answering. He took my cup, set it aside, and pulled me into the living room anyway. The music was loud and terrible. We didn't dance so much as sway in place. His hands on my waist, my arms loose around his neck because it felt natural. His forehead dropped to mine. I broke up with Claire because of you, said against my skin. So quietly I almost didn't hear it over the bass. I froze. What? He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. Not like because you did anything. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you when I was with her. And that didn't feel fair. The room spun. Someone jostled us. Eli's hands tightened, steadying me. Or maybe steadying himself. Eli, I don't know what I'm doing, he said in a rush. Guys were never on my radar. And then you moved in, and you were just here, laughing at my shitty jokes and leaving paint on the light switches and humming when you work. And I started noticing things. How you bite your lip when you're concentrating. How you look when you first wake up. How much I wanted to touch you every single time you walk past me. I couldn't breathe. I'm freaking you out, he whispered. No, I managed. You're not. He searched my face. Tell me if I'm ruining everything. You're not. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for months. We didn't kiss that night. We went home instead. Walked through campus with snow starting to fall, shoulders brushing. In the room, he stopped in the middle of the floor, hands shoved in his pockets. I don't want to mess this up, he said. Whatever this is, I needed you to know. I took the 3 steps between us and kissed him. It was soft, careful. His lips were cold from the walk and tasted like peppermint schnapps. When I pulled back, his eyes were wide, stunned. Okay? I asked. He nodded slowly. More than okay? We took it slow after that. Agonizingly slow because Eli needed to understand himself before he could understand us. And I refused to be the thing that forced him into a box he wasn't ready for. We held hands under blankets during movie nights. He started falling asleep with his head on my chest, fingers curled into my shirt like he was afraid I'd vanish. We talked about everything. Compulsory heterosexuality, demisexuality, the way he'd always felt. A little different, but never had words for it. He came out to his older sister over winter break on the phone, voice shaking. She cried and told him she loved him, and asked if the cute artist roommate was the reason. He laughed until he cried. He told the team in February after the season ended. Some guys were weird for a week. Most just shrugged and asked if that meant I was coming to the spring banquet as his date. He said yes before he asked me. I said yes before I thought about it. The first time he said I love you was in March. 2:17 a.m. after I'd fallen asleep on his bed again. I woke to him tracing the shell of my ear with one careful finger. Jules? I love you, he whispered like he was testing the weight of it. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out how to say it. Yeah. Pressed my face to his neck. I love you too, idiot. He laughed, shaky and relieved, and kissed me until the room blurred. Years later, people asked how we got together. Eli always told the short version. He was my roommate. I was clueless. He waited. I let him have that one. The truth was messier, braver, and entirely ours. My name is Elias Quinn, but everyone just calls me Eli. I'm a photography major who lives in black jeans and smells faintly of darkroom chemicals. My roommate is Noah Callahan, sophomore starting forward on the university hockey team, human golden retriever in a 6'3" package. We'd been sharing a shoebox dorm on the 3rd floor of Maple Hall for almost 3 months. Before anything happened, it started with small things. Noah borrowing my headphones and leaving them neatly coiled on my desk. Me fixing the crooked posters above his bed because the asymmetry was driving me insane. Late-night talks when he couldn't sleep after road games and I couldn't sleep after crits. He told me about growing up in a tiny town in northern Minnesota, where hockey was religion and his dad coached the high school team. I told him about growing up in Seattle, with a mom who painted murals on abandoned buildings and a dad who restored vintage cameras. Then one night in November, the radiator clanked like it was dying. Snow tapped the window, and Noah looked at me across the room and said, "I think I like you." Like you. I laughed, because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. We kissed for the first time that night. Clumsy and urgent, my back against the mini-fridge. His hockey-calloused hands gentle on my face like I was something breakable and priceless. We didn't tell anyone, not yet. Noah had spent 19 years being the perfect strata, straight son, straight hockey star. I wasn't going to be the thing that cracked that, but secrets, way more than people think. Thanksgiving came fast. I was planning to take the Greyhound home to Seattle when Noah cornered me after practice, hair still damp, cheeks red from the cold. "Come home with me," he said. "To Minnesota, my parents' place. Just for a couple days? My mom keeps asking why I talk about my artsy roommate so much." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I want them to meet you. The real you. The me that's? With you, Noah, we've been whatever this is for 3 weeks. I know. But I'm tired of pretending I'm only happy when I'm on the ice. You make me happy off it. I want them to see that, so I went." The Callahan house sat on the edge of a frozen lake, white clapboard, blue shutters. Christmas lights already up, even though Thanksgiving was still 2 days away. Smoke curled from the chimney, and the air smelled like pine and chimney and something baking. Noah's mom, Sarah, opened the door before we even reached the porch. She was small and blonde like Noah, eyes bright as skate blades. "You must be Eli," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and wool. "Noah never shuts up about you," Noah groaned. "Mom." His dad, Mike, was quieter, broad-shouldered, still wearing the high school hockey jacket he'd coached in for 20 years. He shook my hand hard enough to rattle my bones, but his smile was real. Their daughter, Harper, 16 and fearless, took one look at my chipped black nail polish and combat boots and announced, "Finally, someone interesting." The first day was easy. "Too easy, Sarah? Fed us until we couldn't move." Mike asked about my photography. Harper dragged me to the garage to show me the half-pipe her dad had, spilt her when she decided skateboarding was cooler than figure skating. Noah kept catching my eye across rooms, small secret smiles that made my chest hurt. That night he whispered, "I'm telling them tomorrow." While we lay top-to-tail in his childhood bed because the twin wasn't big enough for 2 hockey player-sized boys, his voice shook. I found his ankle in the dark and hooked my cold foot around it. "I'm right here," I said. "Whatever happens." It happened the next afternoon. Harper was at a friend's, Sarah was making pies in the kitchen, Mike reading the paper by the fireplace. Noah stood up so fast he knocked over the ottoman. "Mom, Dad, I need to say something." Sarah wiped her hands on the apron that said, "Kiss the cook." "But only if you're Mike." Mike folded the paper slowly. "I'm bisexual," Noah said in a rush, like ripping off a bandage. "And Eli isn't just my roommate. He's my boyfriend. I love him." The clock on the mantel ticked loud enough to hear. Sarah's face went through a whole slideshow. Surprise. Worry. Then something softer. Mike just stared at the fire for a long second. When he looked up, his eyes were glassy. "How long have you known?" he asked, voice gravel. That I'm bi? A while that I'm in love with Eli? Since the night he let me cry in his hoodie after we lost to Duluth and didn't make fun of me once. Sarah crossed the room and cupped Noah's face. Baby, why didn't you tell us sooner? I was scared, Noah whispered. Everyone has this. The idea of who I'm supposed to be.
Mike stood.
For a terrible second, I thought he was going to walk out. Instead, he pulled Noah into a hug so tight the chair creaked. You listen to me, kid, he said into Noah's shoulder. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. And if anyone ever gives you grief about who you love, they can answer to me. Sarah turned to me, eyes shining. Eli, thank you for making my boy brave enough to tell us. I tried to say you're welcome, but it came out a croak. Later, when Harper came home and Noah told her, she looked at us. Rolled her eyes so hard I worried they'd stick and said, Took you long enough. I've had $20 on you too since October. And she hugged Noah so hard he lifted off the ground. We stayed 2 more days. I learned how to ice fish badly. Sarah taught me her Pike Rust secret vodka in the water. Don't tell anyone. Mike showed me the trophy case in the basement with Noah's name on half the plaques and told me quietly, Take care of him. Yeah. He's tougher than he looks, but he feels everything. The night before we left, Noah and I walked down to the frozen lake. Moonlight on snow so bright it hurt. He took my mittened hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving me a soft place to land? Back on campus, the news traveled at hockey speed. Noah told the team in the locker room after practice. I waited outside the rink, camera around my neck, pretending to photograph frost patterns on the glass. When he came out, his nose was red, eyes bright, grin wide enough to crack his face. Captain said anyone who has a problem can find a new team, he said. Then half the guys asked if you're coming to the Christmas party as my date. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my camera. 2 weeks later was the winter gala. Black tie, held in the old music hall downtown. I'd never owned anything fancier than a thrift store blazer. Noah showed up at my door in a midnight blue tux that made him look like a 1940s movie star. Holding 2 boutonnieres, 1 white ranunculus and cedar for me, 1 deep red rose and pine for himself. I asked the florist for flowers that mean I see you, and I'm not looking away. He said, cheeks pink. I had nothing for him. Panic rising. He smirked, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a tiny sprig of mistletoe. Backup plan. The gala was magic and nerves. Chandeliers, string quartet, too many people who knew Noah as Callahan, the hockey guy, now watching us walk in hand. We posed for 1 million photos. Noah's arm around my waist, my head on his shoulder. Someone's flash caught the exact moment he kissed my temple. On the dance floor, under lights that looked like fallen snow, he pulled me close during a slow song. Everyone's staring, I murmured. Good, he said. Let them see I'm the luckiest guy in the room. Halfway through the night, the DJ played Lover by Taylor Swift, because apparently the hockey team had bribed him. Noah's face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. This is our song now, he declared, spinning me so hard my shoes squeaked. Every couple needs one. So we're a couple? He stopped dancing, cupped my face right there in the middle of everything. Eli Quinn. I've been yours since the night you developed that roll of film. At 3 a.m., and let me watch the pictures appear like magic. I'm not going anywhere. I kissed him in front of the entire ballroom. Someone whooped. Someone else started clapping. By the time we pulled apart, half the room was cheering. Finals week was hell. We lived on Red Bull and each other's hoodies. The night before my last critique, I was shaking apart over a portfolio that wouldn't come together. Noah pulled me away from my laptop, wrapped us both in a blanket, made me sleep with my head on his chest while he rubbed slow circles on my back. We're gonna be okay, he kept saying. We made it through coming out to my dad. We can make it through color theory. When a break came, I went home to Seattle for Christmas. But Noah flew out on the 27th. My mom met him at baggage claim holding a hand-painted sign that said, Welcome to the family. Shoot your shot. My dad shook his hand, looked him dead in the eye, and said, Hurt him, and I'll take away your camera privileges. Noah gulped. I laughed until I cried. New Year's Eve, We stood on my mom's rooftop, watching fireworks over the sound. He pulled a tiny wooden box from his coat. Inside was a key. "It's to our new place," he said. "I got us an off-campus apartment for next semester. 2 bedrooms. But," he shrugged, grinning, "I figured we only need 1. I kissed him as the clock struck midnight, city exploding in color behind us later. Tangled in my childhood bed, city lights striping the ceiling. He whispered against my neck, "You were the best thing I never knew I was looking for." I pressed my face into his shoulder so he wouldn't see me cry. Some love stories are loud. Some are quiet. Ours started with clanking radiators and hesitant kisses in the dark, and grew into something steady enough to build a life on. And every year on New Year's Eve, we play that same Taylor Swift song, and he spins me exactly like he did that first night. Only now there's a ring on my finger that catches the light when I hold his face and tell him, again, that I love him. He always answers the same way. "I know. Quinn, I've known since the first time you let me hold your hand in the dark. My name is Elias Wu. I'm 21, queer, chronically overcaffeinated, and I paint like the canvas owes me money." In August of my sophomore year at Northwestern, the housing office lost a decimal point somewhere and accidentally placed me in a double in Allison, hall that was supposed to be my... The Raw shrugged, said budget cuts, and told me to make it work. So on move-in day, I hauled my boxes up to room 312 and found a 6'3", a cross player from Connecticut already unpacking stick bags and Patagonia fleeces. His name was Griffin Callahan. Sun-bleached brown hair, the kind of forearms you only get from years of cradling a ball at full sprint, and a smile that looked like it had never been told no. He took one look at my purple hair, chipped black nail polish, and the pride flag sticker on my laptop and said, "Huh, guess we're roommates." Then he stuck out his hand like we were closing a business deal. I shook it. His palm was warm, calloused, and I hated how much I noticed. The first month was a masterclass in careful distance. Griff was polite in the way straight boys are when they're trying not to look homophobic, overly casual, really loud, always announcing when he was going to change shirts. I, meanwhile, kept my headphones on and my sketches turned away from his side of the room. We talked about class schedules, dining hall hacks, and how the showers on our floor ran cold after 9 p.m., anything deeper felt dangerous. But proximity is a hell of a drug. I learned he hated peas, but would eat an entire sleeve of Oreos in one sitting. He learned I took my coffee black and cried at Pixar movies. He started leaving the desk lamp on when he went to bed in case I was up late painting. I started buying the honey-roasted peanuts he liked, even though I'm allergic, just so he'd have them. We never said thank you. We just did it. October brought midterms and rain that never seemed to stop. One night, I came back from the art building soaked to the bone, paint still under my nails, and found Griff on his bed scrolling through his phone with the kind of blank expression that meant something had gone wrong. I asked. He hesitated, then handed me the phone. It was an Instagram story from his high school girlfriend, her kissing some Sigma Chi in Cabo. The caption read, "New Year, New Me." "She broke up with me by text last week," he said, voice flat. Didn't even use my name. Just, "Hey, this isn't working." I sat on the edge of my bed, dripping on the carpet. "I'm sorry," he laughed, brittle. "I flew her out to formal last spring. Bought the tickets and everything. I didn't say anything for a long time." Then I stood up, grabbed the half-empty bottle of cheap vodka someone had left in our mini-fridge after pre-gamming, and handed it to him. He took a long pull, grimaced, handed it back. We passed it back and forth until the room tilted gently. "I always thought I'd marry her," he said quietly, like that was the plan. High school sweethearts, big wedding in Greenwich, 2.5 kids, golden retriever. The whole thing. I hummed. Plans change. He looked at me then, really looked through me. Do they? Something electric snapped between us. I felt it in my teeth. I stood up too fast, muttered something about needing a shower, and fled. But the air in the room had shifted. After that night, the distance shrank. He asked about my paintings. I went to his lacrosse games and learned what a crease violation was. He started wearing the rainbow lanyard I'd left on the desk, because it was the only one long enough for my keys. I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Thanksgiving break came. I went home to Chicago. He went to Connecticut. We texted the whole time. Dumb stuff, memes. The dining hall is trash without you. Tell your mom I'm obsessed with her kimchi. When we got back to campus, he hugged me at the airport gate like we'd been apart for years instead of 8 days. I let the hug last 1 second too long. Winter quarter. Everything cracked open. It started with a party at the lacrosse house. I hadn't planned on going. Frat parties aren't my natural habitat. But Griff texted, "Please come save me from these people," and I've never been good at saying no to him. I showed up in ripped jeans and eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass. He was already drunk, cheeks flushed, hair falling into his eyes. He saw me and lit up like I was the only person in the room. We did shots. We danced. Badly. At some point the music slowed and he pulled me outside onto the porch, where the air was sharp enough to sober you half up. We leaned against the railing, sharing a cigarette, even though neither of us really smoked. I broke up with the idea of her, he said suddenly. Like, not just her? The whole script. I don't want the house in Greenwich. I don't want the golden retriever. I laughed, shaky. Okay, he turned to face me. I want this. He gestured between us, helpless. Whatever this is, I want it so much it's stupid. And my heart tried to climb out of my throat. Griff, I'm not good at this, he said. I've only ever dated girls. I don't know what I'm doing. But when you're not here, everything's gray. And when you are, he stopped, swallowed. I think I'm in love with you, Eli, and it scares the shit out of me, but it's true. I kissed him before he could take it back. It was clumsy, teeth clicking, both of us trembling from cold and terror and want. But then his hands found my waist and my fingers slid into his hair, and it turned slow, deliberate, perfect. When we pulled apart, our breath fogged between us like a secret. Okay? He whispered, more than I said. We didn't tell anyone at first. We made out in the stacks of the library in the back row of film screenings, in the laundry room at 3 a.m. while our clothes spun. He learned how to make my coffee exactly right. I learned the constellation of freckles across his shoulders. We fought about stupid things. How loud his friends were when they came over drunk. How I never answered texts when I was painting, and made up in ways that left us breathless and laughing. Spring came. He came out to his teammates first. I sat in the car outside the lacrosse house, engine running, ready to peel out if it went badly. He texted 20 minutes later. They hugged me. One cried, "We're good," cried in the parking lot like an idiot. He came out to his parents over FaceTime. His mom asked if he was safe, if he was happy. When he said yes to both, she said, "Then bring him home for Easter." His dad took longer. But by summer, he was asking me about my thesis and calling me son in that gruff way straight dads do when they're trying. Junior year, we moved off campus into a crumbling Victorian walk-up with creaky floors and windows that stuck. We painted the kitchen yellow because I said it would taste like sunlight. He hung his lacrosse sticks next to my canvases. We adopted a one-eyed cat named Pesto who hated everyone except Griff. We hosted Thanksgiving for our friends who couldn't go home. His little sister flew in and slept on our couch and told me I always knew he'd end up with someone who could keep up with him. Don't hurt him. I promised I wouldn't. Senior year, I made us reckless with joy. My thesis show was called Fault Lines. Every piece was about the moment before becoming. I painted Griff 100 different ways, the slope of his back in morning light, the way his mouth curved when he was trying not to laugh, the first time he said I love you and meant all of it. The centerpiece was a 6-foot canvas. 2 bodies made of fractured color, learning how to hold each other without breaking. The night of the opening, he stood in front of it for a long time. When he turned to me, his eyes were wet. "You make me look brave," he said. "You are," I told him. After the reception, back in our apartment with paint still on my hands and champagne in our veins, he got down on one knee in mismatched socks and said, "Marry me, Eli. Not someday. Now. Tomorrow. 50 years from now. All of it." The ring was white gold, with a thin stripe of lapis lazuli running through it. Like the first night we kissed, something steady running through. All the chaos. I said yes until my voice gave. Out we got married the summer after graduation. On the shore of Lake Michigan with 37 people in a playlist we made at 2 a.m. the week before. His teammates were groomsmen in bare feet. My mom cried through the whole ceremony. We wrote our own vows. His ended with, I was straight until I met the only person I ever wanted to be crooked with. Mine ended with, you are the best mistake housing ever made. That was 6 years ago. We live in Chicago now. I illustrate children's books with queer families and quiet magic. He coaches lacrosse at a high school and volunteers at the Trevor Project on weekends. Pesto is old and fat and sleeps between us every night. We still have a dog now, too. A mutt named Pickles, who eats socks. Sometimes, when the city is loud and the world feels too sharp, we drive out to the lake and sit on the hood of our car like we're 20 again. The stars haven't changed much. Neither have we. Not really. Still independent circles, still locked together. He still says he was straight. I still answer, sure, baby. Whatever you say. And then I kiss him until he forgets the lie.